Mangwanani Malelepo Vukenjani Klas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening in the SADC region and beyond. Today is Monday, the 20th of September. If you look outside, there's a gorgeous full moon. This full moon is known as the harvest moon. It's time for us to reap what we have sown. But for now, we'll be bringing you the news. My name is Ashwin Betty, and as usual, we are with Aina Raisa Kweyo.
Happy Monday, everyone. Today is National Clean Up Day. Stand up together to clean up all the litter in the environment and make Namibia a clean country. Start by cleaning up your immediate surroundings. You don't have to be part of an organized group or a planned action to make a difference on National Clean Up Day. And here is more on that. Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. In our top stories, WHO calls on world leaders at the UN General Assembly to focus on vaccine equity, pandemic preparedness, and getting the SDGs back on track. WHO is urging leaders attending the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly to guarantee equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines and other life-saving tools, ensure the world is prepared to respond to future pandemics, and renew efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. The COVID-19 pandemic has already claimed the lives of nearly 5 million people around the globe, and the virus continues to circulate actively in the regions around the world. Vaccines are the most critical tool to end the pandemic and save lives and livelihoods. More than 5.7 billion vaccine doses have been administered globally, but 73% of global doses have been administered in just 10 countries. In high-income countries have administered 61 times more doses per inhabitant than lower-income countries. The longer vaccine inequity persists, the more the virus keeps circulating and evolving, and the longer the social and economic disruption continues.
In our second story, presidents of Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire in Guinea for talks with junta. The presidents of Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are in Conakry to hold talks with the Guinean military leaders a day after the Economic Community of West African States imposed sanctions on the junta. Mr. Akufo-Addo announced his arrival via a Facebook post, noting that they were in the country primarily to discuss the fate of deposed President Alpha Condé, who remains in detention since September 5 when Special Forces soldiers led by Domboya overthrew him. The Ghanaian president on Thursday chaired an extraordinary ECOWAS leaders summit which resolved to impose sanctions on the leadership of the junta and their family members in response to the coup. Following their arrival, the two leaders met with Colonel Domboya at the airport before heading to Sheraton Hotel in the city, where they were expected to consult on their next move. The visit of the heads of state was met with a sizable demonstration by supporters of the coup, who lined up at the entrance of the airport with messages on placards praising the coup leaders while denouncing ECOWAS for its condemnation of the coup.
Tunisians protest against President Saidad in Tunis. Several hundreds of protesters marched through the central Tunis on Saturday to demand a return to parliamentary democracy after a July power grab by President Kais Saied. The march was tightly marshaled by security forces on the ground and the Interior Ministry surveillance drone overhead, journalists reported. Most of the protesters were supporters of the Islamist-inspired Adnanan party, which formed the largest bloc in parliament before its dissolution by the president. The people want the collapse of the coup, the protesters chanted. We want legitimacy. On the 25th of July, Saided sacked the government, suspended parliament, removed lawmakers' immunity, and put himself in charge of all prosecutions. Saided has renewed the measures for a second 30-day period and has yet to respond to calls for a roadmap for lifting them.
Paris climate deal could go up in smoke without action. This is according to Antonio Guterres. Unless wealthy nations commit to tackling emissions now, the world is on a catastrophic pathway to 2.7 degrees of heating by the end of the century, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned on Friday. This is far beyond the 1 to 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold agreed by the international community as part of the 2015 Paris Agreement. We need a 45% cut in emissions by 2030 to reach carbon neutrality by mid-century. It is clear that everyone must assume their responsibilities, he emphasized. Mr. Guterres urged the creation of coalitions of solidarity between countries that still depend heavily on coal and countries that have the financial and technical resources to support transitions to cleaner energy sources. For Mr. Guterres, the fight against climate change will only succeed if everyone comes together to promote more ambition, more cooperation, and more credibility. No more ignoring science, no more ignoring demands of people everywhere. It is time for leaders to stand and deliver, or people in all countries will pay a tragic price, he said.
In South Africa, Jacob Zuma's application to rescind a prison sentence is denied. South Africa's highest court on Friday denied an application by the former President Jacob Zuma to rescind his sentence of 15 months in jail for contempt of court. The Constitutional Court judgment upheld its earlier ruling that Zuma should go to prison for refusing to testify at the Commission of Inquiry into widespread corruption in government and state-owned companies while he was president of South Africa from 2009 to 2018. Zuma was then jailed in July but has since been granted medical parole for his undisclosed illness. His release has been questioned by opposition parties who say procedures were not followed. Friday's judgment was read out by Justice Sisi Kampepe at the Constitutional Court in Johannesburg. She said it was a majority decision of 7-2 judges to uphold Zuma's sentence.
Shadow states are the biggest threat to democracy in Africa. The capture of democratic political systems by the private power networks is arguably the greatest threat to civil liberties and inclusive development in Africa. That's the conclusion of 2 new reports that address the issue of threats to democracy on the continent. The first report is published by Ghana's Center for Democratic Development. It focuses on the capture and subversion of democratic institutions in Benin, Ghana, Kenya, Mozambique, and Nigeria. The second report was curated by Democracy in Africa and takes a slightly different approach. It looks at how unelected networks can infiltrate and subvert state structures. In particular, it maps the emergence of shadow states in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. These case studies show that networks of unelected businessmen, civil servants, political fixers, and members of the president's families wield more power than legislators. According to politics professor Emmanuel Gima Bowadi, democracy capture occurs when a few individuals or sections of a supposedly democratic polity are able to systematically appropriate to themselves the institutions and processes as well as dividends of democratic governance. In other words, democracy capture expands the idea of state capture to include all political institutions and democratic activities, including civil society and the media.
World's worst HIV pandemic stymies South Africa's COVID fight. The world's biggest number of HIV cases is complicating South Africa's effort to fight the coronavirus pandemic, raising the risk for more mutated versions emerging and spreading across the globe. Many of the country's 8.2 million HIV-infected people are immunocompromised and scientists say they can harbor the coronavirus for longer, allowing it to mutate as it reproduces. A study on HIV/AIDS A study of an HIV-positive 36-year-old woman showed that COVID-19 stayed in her body for 216 days and mutated rapidly. The trouble is most of South Africa's HIV-infected people are poor and marginalized. Many of them live in remote areas and have been largely left out of vaccination drives. Airwash vaccines with more than enough doses to inoculate the country's 40 million adults, South Africa's problem is now getting them into the arms of the people who desperately need them. South Africa has struggled with HIV and the disease it causes, AIDS, for more than 3 decades. Last year, 13.7% of South Africans were estimated to be infected with HIV, according to the National Statistics Agency. While deaths have been kept thanks to the world's biggest antiretroviral treatment program, COVID-19 has added a new wrinkle to their plight.
Equal pay for work of equal value. The International Equal Pay Day, celebrated on 18 September, represents the long-standing efforts towards the achievement of equal pay for work of equal value. Across all regions, women are paid less than men, with the gender pay gap estimated at 23% globally. Gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls continues to be held back owing to the persistence of historical and structural unequal power relations between women and men, poverty and inequalities, and disadvantages in access to resources and opportunities that limit women's and girls' capabilities. In order to ensure that no one is left behind, the Sustainable Development Goals address the need to achieve gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. Achieving equal pay is an important milestone for human rights and gender equality. It takes the effort of the entire world community, and more work remains to be done.
Johannesburg Township takes part in a World Clean-up Day. South Africans living in Alexandra, Johannesburg, marked World Clean-up Day on Saturday by cleaning the banks of the polluted Juski River. The river is a source of drinking water for residents, but there is a serious problem with sewage pollution on the river due to an aging infrastructure and the backlog of maintenance. I thought it would be a great thing I thought it would be a great thing for me to take part in this initiative, as it benefits the environment and also the people around the place, said Faith Masago, a volunteer. For Bianca Vanderberg, one of the organizers, a key aim was to demonstrate to residents that it is possible to restore the river to a state where it is safe to swim in it and drink the water. It's community that's the closest to the river that I feel is the most impacted as well, and we are hoping that going forward that they will come and mobilize and see the significance of the river. You know, one day we want to have clean rivers where we can actually swim in them again. You can drink it in it again, and we want to show and empower communities that it is achievable to get that back.
Now in Zimbabwe, Masvingo runs out of COVID jabs as city records overwhelming response. The overwhelming response for inoculation against COVID-19 has resulted in the vaccine occasionally running out at health centers around Masvingo town. This has resulted in an outcry from the public, who are turned away at the vaccination centers for lack of either the first or second doses of the vaccines. Most affected are higher learning institution students, where college authorities have decreed only vaccinated learners would be allowed to attend lectures, and the recently recruited government teachers joining thousands of civil servants that have to comply with the government's directive that all public workers should be vaccinated against the deadly pandemic. Masvingo COVID-19 Provincial Task Force spokesperson Rogers Irimayi said vaccines come in batches and they are dispatched to provinces, districts and vaccination centers as they come. As soon as the country receives, they are allocated to provinces where they are quickly exhausted. He said the issue of queues is related to the population density in particular areas. Where we have high populations, we experience high turnout and overwhelming responses at vaccination centers.
South African firefighters return home after helping to battle wildland blazes in Canada. More than 100 working on firefighters were deployed to Canada in early August to assist with the country's wildfire crisis. The program offered youngsters an opportunity they may have never gotten otherwise and was instrumental in controlling wildlife land fires, a fingerprint of the climate crisis. More than 100 South African firefighters returned home on Thursday morning after 36 days of helping to fight wildland fires in Canada. As they marched through the sliding doors into the arrival terminals of Johannesburg OR Tambo's International Airport, chanting and whistling in heavy boots and bright yellow uniforms, fellow travelers, usually in a rush to catch the flight, couldn't help but stop and look, wondering who they were and where they had been. On the 10th of August, the firefighters from the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment working on a fire program were deployed to Manitoba in Canada to assist with wildland firefighting efforts. Canada has been experiencing a record-breaking heat associated with dry weather, which caused large wildland fires and that exhausted local wildland fire management resources.
Now in the last of our top stories, Cameroon, African leopard sighting raises hopes for conservation in southern Cameroon. In recent years, ecologists have been able to confirm the existence of species previously thought to be lost from former parts of their range. Collecting this evidence is possible due to the increasing use of remotely triggered cameras, commonly known as camera traps. In 2019, 19 camera traps were deployed in southern Cameroon in Central Africa. A sighting of an adult leopard was captured by one of our camera traps in the Campo Ma'an area. This was the first sighting of a leopard in 20 years. The leopard has the widest range of any big cat species in Africa and can persist in a range of habitat types, including savanna and rainforest environments. Population estimates are not known, though numbers in Africa are thought to be declining. A 2016 study estimated that the African leopard's range has reduced to 67%. That brings us to the end of our first batch of stories. We have so much more for you here on Africa Good Morning, right after the break.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. What has happened comparatively on the continent and in Southern Africa since the third wave of COVID-19 hit us? Danny Boysen, editor at Republican, Namibia's Afrikaans Daily, is a man who keeps a close eye to these developments. Danny, last time we spoke at the beginning of August. What has changed ever since?
Before we look at the slides, it's a great pleasure to once again join you in the studio. Like you said, we spoke here early in August. And first of all, let's look again at Namibia. The situation as it currently stands, that was by Friday at least. So that is our first slide we're sharing with you. And when we spoke last, Namibia was recording a bit less than 400 cases per day on average. And you'll see there on the top left, only 74 cases now. So you'll also see that measured on that 7-day average, we now have less cases per day in Namibia than during the first wave. Even last time we did go below the second wave. To the right top, you'll just quickly see we're still doing a lot of testing, about 2,500 on this Friday. But a lot less than the about 6,000, which was our peak. The positivity ratio, that's just the last two waves, And you'll see it went down significantly during the peak of the third wave. We had about, on average, 42% of people tested positive daily. It's now, on average, only 6%. And they say internationally, when you've got about 5% only of people testing positive, that you've got a pandemic under control. So this is all very positive for Namibia. Very quickly, I'm going to focus on the vaccinations, that last slide. So you see the green there is second vaccination. So in Namibia, our problem is currently we have more people turning up for their second jabs than people really going for the first time to get vaccinated. And up next, the next slide quickly, this is what we showed every time I was here, is comparing a couple of countries in our region. Only Tunisia in this graphic is from North Africa. I just want to single out one column. First of all, the fatalities. That's the black numbers people can see on their screens. So Tunisia, if you take it measured on a million people, you will see 2,000 just to the right of that column. So they on top per million people. Sorry, Namibia 1,300, South Africa 1,400, very close. But Botswana and Zimbabwe have, over the last month and a half, both of those countries had about 800 to 900 new deaths. So that's, I think, really an issue of concern. And then vaccination, the last column, very important. Namibia's, let's say we're almost at 6% of the entire population. But clearly South Africa, they're way ahead, 12%. Also, you'll see Zimbabwe at the bottom, 13%. And you just had a story now, a while back, in which you said a lot of people turning up there. Tunisia, 26% already. And Botswana, 9%. And Zambia, only 1%. So, like it's being reported internationally, Africa really behind in terms of getting to that herd immunity percentages. And I wonder what you personally think. What should we do as media people to get people to get vaccinated?
I think we should just spread more of the correct information, because I think we are still in a misinformation age when it comes to COVID-19. So access to correct information is all that needs to happen, I think, for more people to be inspired to go get vaccinated. Yeah.
For you in the rest of Africa, on Friday, actually, we used for the first time Johnson & Johnson as well as Sputnik in Namibia. So first vaccines were actually used. I've got 3 slides, so let's go very quickly through them. Now, this is comparing a lot of different African countries, specifically. The first one is just showing your daily average of new cases. And what we're trying to show here, this data is by our World in Data, and you will see clearly there the 3 waves, 1, 2, and 3 in South Africa. There numerically, of course, is on top, and the one after that is showing fatalities. So let's look at that very quickly before we get back to vaccination. These are fatalities, and then the last one, and I'm going to ask the producer to keep it up for a little while, because it's about vaccination and the actual percentage of the population. So what you'll see there on the right, the top country there is Tunisia, like we said. I'm not going to repeat the Southern African countries we had, but the ones we didn't mention, Mozambique is about at 5% of their population vaccinated, so it's about the same as Namibia. Malawi, 2%. Kenya, only 1.5%. Zambia, 1%. Nigeria, 0.8% only. And they are very close to us here in Namibia, at least. The DRC, Democratic Republic of the Congo, 0.03% of their population, the entire population, that's been fully vaccinated. This is important. This is people fully vaccinated, but that's of course what we want. We want people to get the first jab and get the second jab as well.
Yeah. All right. Are your slides done?
Yes, unless you have more questions for me. Is there something maybe that you spotted that interesting? It's interesting for me personally, and I think we must ask in the region, what did Zimbabwe do
Yeah.
to do so well? They were a bit behind South Africa as well, but now they're doing very
They
well.
said everyone should get
comparatively.
vaccinated to get like access to go to work, to go to school, to go to church. You need to be vaccinated. And interesting enough, there's a story I think on the front page of the Namibian that says people are fearing losing their jobs if they are not vaccinated. What is your take on that?
I think it's a debate. Obviously, it started in Namibia, and like you said, yes, in Zimbabwe, if you're a public servant, you have to get vaccinated.
You have to get it.
That's an order from government now. And our government again told people, no, it's still voluntary. But I think for the rest of this year, early next year, we'll continue to see heated debate on this topic. And maybe more governments will, by the end of 2021 and early in 2022, start changing their policies and their stance on this.
All right. Thank you very much, Tani, for joining us and disseminating this information.
It's been a great pleasure.
All right. This is still Africa Good Morning, and we'll be right back after the break with Master Mike Sichula all the way in Zambia.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. It's time for us to take a trip to Zambia and have a chat with Mr. Mike Sichula as he lets us know the news on the ground. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good morning, Africa. Good. How are you doing? Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, in your first story, police in Lusaka have recovered over 3.5 million US dollars concealed in more than 30 traveling bags from a home owned by a local media personnel who is on the run. Could you tell us about this interesting development?
Yes, this incident happened on in the early hours of Friday into Saturday morning. So the police acting from information they say from members of the public who were concerned about what probably was going on at this house. That's a beautiful, you can see there, well furnished. This house in 2020 was going for sale for about 900,000 US dollars. So what we don't know at the moment whether the media personnel that owned this house or she was renting. She's not known to have been involved in any business activities publicly. That is. So police are wondering how she might have gotten that amount of money concealed in more than 30 different traveling bags. So the money was in assortment of US dollars, as can be seen, as well as kwacha. So the amount of US dollars was about over $50,000. Then the kwacha term, she had about 5 million kwacha, which if you rebased, it would have been 65 billion kwacha. So acting on information from unknown, police have known it. They raided this house. Apparently, she was not around. Takers were there, and that's how officers collected this money.
All right.
And as we speak, the money is in safe custody at the Bank of Zambia, and the police continued to say, yeah.
All right, President Hakainde Hichilema is only traveling with 2 residents, and this is a move, not 2 residents, I mean 2 ministers, excuse me, and this is a move to save costs. Please tell us more.
Yes, a number of people following his taking over of government are putting a check on what he said he would do once he formed government. So yes, over the weekend, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Stanley Kapp, announced to the nation that the head of state will be traveling, and in his entourage there will just be him, the Minister of Finance, as well as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, with a few security personnel and other advanced parties. That's the president held his first cabinet meeting on Friday this week. So this is what the people now are waiting to see. But there are also others who are saying if the president says his entourage is going to be trained, we need to know how much money will be spent in terms of the entourage. What is the difference if he had used a private jet as opposed to flying commercial?
How do the
These
numbers
questions are
actually
coming
add
on
up?
board.
All right, okay. Now, in the
Yeah,
last of your
so they want to
updates,
do that.
sorry about that, Mike. We're just going to get straight into your last story. Super League champions Zesco United have been eliminated from the CAF Champions League, while 2 other sides have progressed to the next round. Could you tell us a bit about this?
Yes, 4 teams in the Champions League, 2 teams in the Confederation Cup. That's Red Arrows. They qualified in the Confederation. They beat loyal young Buffaloes of Eswatini to progress to the next round. In Lusaka, the match ended 2-1. When they traveled away, that match ended 0-0. So meaning Red Arrows have progressed. Other team that was eliminated is Cabo Warriors. They drew 0-0 in Madagascar. Then they suffered a 2-1 loss in Cabo. In the picture there, that is Zanaco Football Club. They have progressed to the Champions League. They beat a team from Equatorial Guinea 3-0 away. Then they drew 0-0 in Lusaka. So for Zesco, it's a sad development because they were in the Champions League, and it is one of the teams that really that's Zesco in the picture there. A very sad development for Zesco and Cabo Warriors.
Hopefully they get to prove themselves again next season. Thank you very much, Mike, for bringing us the news from Zambia.
Thank you very much, Africa. Good morning.
Africa, good morning indeed. We hope to have a good day going ahead, but the only way to find that out is by checking out the weather forecast up next.
The USS Herschel Woody Williams, under command of Captain Chet Graham, is in Walvis Bay for a 2-day visit. The visit will showcase the important partnership between the United States and Namibia, as well as a shared commitment to ensuring safety, security, and freedom of navigation in Namibia and southern Atlantic waters. Captain Chet Graham tells us more about their visit.
The USS Herschel Woody Williams, under command of Captain Chad Graham, is on a visit to the port of Walvis Bay from 16 to 17 September. Captain Chad Graham tells us more about this American warship.
The uniqueness of our timed deployment from the AFRICOM area of responsibility, so U.S. Africa Command's area of responsibility, U.S. Herschel Woody Williams scheduled deployment coincided with the unique opportunity to be able to visit Namibia. It is our intent while we're here to strengthen an already strong bilateral agreement between the two nations and to work with our brothers and sisters in the Namibian Navy on mutual interest items, such as developing our maritime domain awareness and countering illicit activity from the sea as our primary purpose. Also, while we're here, we would like to, I believe we're going to get beat very badly tomorrow by the Namibian Navy soccer team, but we look forward to at least trying and playing, and we appreciate the invite to be able to go out and see a little bit of the country and engage with the Navy.
Captain, please tell us a bit about the ship.
So, the U.S. Herschel Woody Williams is an expeditionary staging base. This ship allows us to project power from the sea. So I can embark forces on board. It's meant for low intensity conflict in uncontested areas, which means I can't take this ship somewhere that has anti-ship cruise missiles. I have no ability to defend myself except against small boat attack and of that nature. So this ship is primarily designed as a mobile sea base that can launch missions from it, do humanitarian assistance, non-combatant evacuations, minesweeping. It's a very configurable and flexible platform.
Duration of the stay?
We will only be here for approximately 2 nights.
And then the next is another country?
Another country next. We are currently circumnavigating Africa from the west to the east. So we started in Rota, Spain for my crew, and we're going to end up in Suda Bay Creek by the time we're done.
Is this the first visit to Namibia?
This is my first visit. This is the ship's first visit. It has been a long time since a vessel of any substantial size has come to Namibia. And like I said, it was a very unique opportunity. The port facility here is phenomenal to support such a large ship, and we were very, very pleased with our reception from the port captain and the pilot to bring us in, and their coordination to get us pierside. As you can see, it is a very tight fit for a ship this big, and it was handled excellently by the Namibian support team.
What is the number of the crew members currently on the ship?
So the ship is rated to carry 100 uniformed crew members, 45 civilian crew members. It's a hybrid ship where it's military and civilian. And then I can embark approximately another 100 to 150 what we call mission enablers. So if I need a boarding team, I can bring that. If I need a medical team or someone, a non-government organization to help with humanitarian assistance, I have the flexibility to change my loadout and embark about another 100 to 150 people.
And then, Captain, aside from playing some soccer, what else are you going to do here?
So we're going to be, actually, this will be a first for me in a long time, but we're going to land a Namibian helicopter on our flight deck while we're here. Later today, we're going to do a safety brief and walkthrough with the pilots and have them come aboard for landing, which is a great add to interoperability between the nations. And then we'll set up for some tours and hope host some of the key leadership in the area for a reception on board.
Do you think you'll come back again?
I absolutely will come back again. I don't know when, but so this ship is the first ever permanently assigned to United States Africa Command. Our mission is solely to operate in and near Africa and establish relationships with our partners in Africa. It is a physical representation of the United States' commitment to countering illicit activity at sea in off the coast of Africa. So what I have is a unmanned drone that I use for surveillance, and that will be a part of the tour tomorrow. But I do not currently have anything embarked. I could take up to 4 MV-22 Ospreys, large tilt rotor aircraft, and or MH-60 Sierras, or even our CH-53s, which are minesweeping helicopters. So third largest flight deck in the United States Navy up there.
And the bottom here would be...
This is what we call our mission deck, and so this is primarily for mission support units, so if we can build it inside of one of these U's, like a Connex box, we can change those out. And you can see the gray one up there.
Yeah.
That's a trooper. I can hold 46 people in that collection with a full head facility. Primarily what we use is that large crane lifts small boats and unmanned surface and subsurface vehicles from the mission deck and deploys them. So this is all my small boat capability. And then we'll see on the other side of that house, I have two of my boats. But this is primarily for all the waterborne missions that we support.
There's a workshop to repair these craft.
Yeah, so we have a big hangar deck for the aircraft, and then we would repair any of the craft on the deck down here. Any of the boats. We don't have the capability to pull the engines or anything, but we can do smaller level repairs.
But as you said, it's a staging platform.
So it's very flexible. We can do a lot with it. It's very good at sea. I think we hit anywhere from 8 to 10 foot seas coming down, and we can barely move.
Just the final one from me, Captain. Yes. What are some of the illicit activities that you've experienced along the African coastline thus far?
Some of the what?
The illicit activities that you've experienced along the coastline.
So our primary, we are what we call overt in our operations right now. So we transmit on AIS, the Automatic Identification System. So it's amazing. We don't see a lot in the area when we are in this operating mode. I do not currently have a boarding team or a law enforcement team on board, so I'm not searching out any illicit traffic, but we know we know what's going on, and we continue to communicate with every country that has a maritime operations center. We communicate and report traffic that we have, and anything that we're coming across at sea, we help extend their view from the shoreline. And that's one of our primary missions, is maritime domain awareness in the area.
Awesome.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. It's time for us to dive straight into your economic news stories for the day. And we start off in Uganda, where we're talking about the hidden wealth in cassava. In Uganda, 74% of farming households grow cassava, but the majority of them are poverty-stricken communities with very limited access to markets. More than 96% of the cassava farmers access low cassava planting materials from their own fields or from fellow farmers. Cassava is flexible low, and the slow rate of growth makes it suitable for intercropping, especially with maize. Cassava production is carried out all year round, lasting an average of 12 months in the field. High-quality cassava cuttings for planting are often in short supply, especially in refugee-hosting settlements. This implies that farmers require the supply of high-yielding, disease-resistant, improved cassava varieties. Thus, the introduction of improved varieties and agronomic practices into the cassava production system consequently can increase yields per unit area by 40%, according to Kiwanuka, a livelihoods officer and agronomist with ADRA.
Tanzania Samia pushes for value-added cashews. Chama cha Mapinduzi Secretary General Daniel Chongolo to cashew farmers in Matara region, accompanied by members of the CCM National Secretariat, is on a two-day official tour to Matara region to inspect the implementation of the ruling party's manifesto, as well as reviewing the party's strength at grassroots level. President Samia has directed all cashew nuts to be harvested in the southern zone region to be transported to Matara port, but she also directed me to tell farmers who are capable of processing their produces before selling to do so to add value, he said. Master Chongoro said the cashew farmers were not barred from processing their harvest provided they are capable to do so. The president has insisted that no farmer is prevented from processing their cashews provided he or she is capable of doing so in order to add value for better earnings, he said. On the other hand, Master Chongolo cautioned farmers against selling their cashew nuts through illegal routes and instead of official cashew nuts auction sets to be opened up next month.
In our next story, South Africa to import plastic waste to meet the needs of the industry. As if South Africa wasn't struggling to deal with its own plastic, the country is opening up applications for importing plastic waste in order to meet the plastic industry's needs, the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment told Daily Maverick. The import of plastic waste will be regulated under the outlining and mandate of the Basel Convention, which addresses the movement of hazardous waste between nations, DFFE Minister Barbara Creecy said in a parliamentary internal question paper. South Africa is nowhere near being so short of plastic waste that it can take on additional waste. It produces about 2,370 tons of plastic waste each year. Identified as the world's 11th biggest polluter of land-based plastic pollution into the oceans and the third in Africa after Egypt and Nigeria, South Africa recycles only about 14% of plastic waste. This figure includes imported waste, leaving a vast amount of plastic pollution leaking into the environment and the oceans.
Africa, AFC launches a 500 million climate resilient infrastructures. The African Finance Corporation has announced the creation of Investment Fund for Climate Resilient Infrastructure. The Climate Resilient Infrastructure Fund aims to improve the quality of port, roads, bridges, railways, telecommunication facilities, clean energy production, and logistics in Africa. The fund aims to provide an effective response to rising temperature due to climate change. The fund manager is headed by Ayan Zainab Adams, a climate investment specialist who has worked with the United Nations Green Climate Fund and the International Finance Corporation, the World Bank Group's private sector's financing arm. For a new fund, AFC Capital Partners plan to raise 500 million in the first few months to invest in climate resilient infrastructures in Africa.
That brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Up next, your economic indicators. Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. It was a very good sporting weekend. If you're an Arsenal fan, if you support other clubs, good luck to you. But Adi Hogarth is here to give us the updates just as they are. Good morning, Adi. How are you?
Yes, a very good morning, Ashwin. Yes, indeed. Good news for Arsenal supporters. It was a bad start for them. Lost 3 games in a row, the first 3 games, but they're off the bottom, so to speak. They
We
won
try not to
against
dwell on the
Burnley
past.
the past weekend.
We try not to dwell on the past, yes.
Yes, yes. It's a long season. There's hope they can still make the top 4. Maybe they can still win. You never know. But well done for Arsenal. And let's move on to some of the other football news. There was some Women's World Cup qualifying games that took place. Lots of games that took place, starting with the Women's World Cup. It's going to be in Australia and New Zealand in 2 years' time. And some of the teams that went through this weekend, that's the soccer girls from New Zealand and Australia. Some of the teams that went through this weekend, England, Russia, Italy, and Switzerland all have had wins in their round games. And then France seemed to be one of the teams to look out for at the World Cup. They had a convincing game against Greece by 10-0 that they won. And Poland and Belgium had a 1-1 draw. They will be teams competing in the World Cup definitely. And also the Czech Republic also 1-1. So nice to see women's football getting momentum for the qualifying for World Cup. Hopefully by then COVID-19 would be not as easy. English Premier League, they're continuing at the moment, and it's for us in Southern Africa, it's makes us a bit jealous to see all the people that's in the stadiums that's supporting the games live. Nice atmosphere at the English Premier Leagues at the moment. The 3 teams that's leading at the moment, strong teams, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Man United, all won. They have 13 points after 4 games. It was Chelsea with a very impressive win at Tottenham Hotspur last night, 3-0. Liverpool beat Crystal Palace at home by 3-0. And then Manchester United, a tough game for them at West Ham, and they managed to win that 2-1. And like Ashwin said earlier, Arsenal beat Burnley by 1-0. On to some cricket news, and also lots of cricket happening all over the globe. But it was a good weekend for Zimbabwe cricket. The men's and women's teams, very good results for Zimbabwe cricket. Firstly, let's go to the women's, and it was the qualifying games. It's the qualifying games for the T20 World Cup that is going to take place in 2 years' time, 2023, in South Africa. That's the first round of qualifiers. Those are the Namibian team, and they played against Zimbabwe in the final yesterday in Gaborone. And it was the Zimbabwe women's team that came out winners it's a close game. They won by 13 runs. Batted first Zimbabwe 133 for 4, and then Namibia could only make 120 for 9. So what happens now is Zimbabwe go through to the global qualifying tournament that will be next year, leading up to the World Cup in 2023. And then the Zimbabwe men's team, like I mentioned, they're playing at the moment and they played against Scotland in the third T20 game yesterday. High-scoring game. Scotland made 177 for 4, and then Zimbabwe made 180 for 4 with 5 balls to spare to win the T20 game. And a great performance, Milton Shumba. He batted at number 5. He made 66 runs of only 29 balls. Hit 6 sixes in his innings of 29 balls. Great performance by Milton Shumba. And let's go on to some rugby news. There was obviously the rugby championships that took place for Southern Africa, or for South Africa specifically. Not good news. The South African Springboks that keep on battling, they lost their second weekend in a row against Australia. Australia won by 30 points to 17. Lots of work there to be done in the training field by John, the coach. They've got a big assignment coming up this coming weekend. They need to play the All Blacks. The All Blacks just took over as world number 1 from the Springboks after the weekend, because the All Blacks, they beat Argentina over the weekend by 36 points to 13. So it's a big game coming up. The Springboks play the All Blacks and play Argentina. Some other good news for Southern African rugby, at least. It was the Vancouver Sevens tournament that was played, that finished last night, the HSBC Sevens. But many of the teams couldn't travel, like Fiji and the All Blacks, and just travel to Vancouver. The Blitzboks, the Springboks, won the tournament. They beat Kenya in the final 38 points to 5, but a great win for them in the semi-final, where they beat Great Britain by 26 points to 12. And then quickly, just to finish off, Dutch Open, that's golf news. There was some golf played. It was Christopher Hodin from Sweden that won the Brobeck, sorry, he won the Dutch Open by 23 under, and the South African interest, Justin Harding, he was 13 under par, tied ninth. And so that was some of the European golf. Coming up this coming weekend, it's the Ryder Cup. It is England or Europe that is playing against America. It is the Ryder Cup and straight. It is a big tournament coming up, and the last 12 tournaments, Europe won 9 of them. So a big challenge for America. And Brooks Koepka there, he's in the news with his rivalry with his teammate Bryson DeChambeau. It's more like a feud at the moment. So it's interesting to see how that teamwork will be. And last finish off the last sentence, the San Marino Motor Grand Prix won by Francesco Bagna of Italy. Brad Binder of South Africa, he was 6th in the MotoGP in San Marino last night. So that's all the sport news. Lots happened over the weekend. I hope you had a great sporting weekend, and hopefully your sporting team did well. And we talk again on Friday to preview all the sport happening the coming weekend. All the best. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Ari. Interesting you spoke about a golfing feud, a feud in golf. As far as I'm concerned, golf is silence colored in. How do you manage to get a feud? All right, this is To Africa Good Morning. After the break, your headlines. Africa Good Morning has been streaming live from 7 a.m. And here are the headlines from today's top stories. WHO calls on world leaders at the UN General Assembly to focus on vaccine equity, pandemic preparedness, and getting the SDGs back on track. Presidents of Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Guinea for talks with junta. Tunisians protest against President Said in Tunis. Paris climate deal could go up in smoke without action, according to Guterres. Uganda, the hidden wealth in cassava. In soccer, several Europa League games were played. The Women's World Cup qualifying games continued, and in the English Premier League, Manchester City dropped points. Oh, I love to end the news on such a beautiful tone. Manchester City dropped points. Well, those have been our stories.
Thank you very much for joining us on the Monday edition of Africa Good Morning. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same place. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can email them to us. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. Alternatively, we are on Facebook and Twitter. Our pages are Africa Good Morning. We also have a website called One Up too. Please do visit us for more content. And on that note, get vaccinated, wear your mask, and remember, we are still in the middle of a pandemic.
That's right. Until tomorrow, Swera Zakanaka.